The war with the Arcturians had gone on for 327 years. Humans had fought bravely, but they were losing. Every year, they lost more ships, more planets, and more hope. Major William Bennett stood at the window of the transport ship. Earth grew smaller behind him as he traveled to Luna Base. He had not expected the message ordering him to report to the United Earth Defense Council. Most officers in his position would feel honored. Bennett only felt tired. "Major, we're docking in 5 minutes," the pilot called over the intercom. Bennett adjusted his uniform. The dark blue fabric was clean but worn at the edges. Unlike other officers, he didn't care much about looking perfect. He cared about results. That attitude had earned him respect from soldiers who served under him, but it had also made many high-ranking officers dislike him. Luna Base was the largest military installation humans had built. Carved into the moon's surface, it housed the central command for all human forces. As Bennett walked through its halls, he noticed how quiet everyone was. The faces he passed looked defeated. "Major Bennett, this way, please." A young lieutenant met him at the entrance to the command center. "Admiral Summers is waiting for you." The command center was a large room filled with screens showing battle reports from across the galaxy. In the center stood a round table where the Defense Council usually met. Today, only one person sat there. Admiral Catherine Summers had been fighting the Arcturians for over 50 years. Her hair had gone completely white, and deep lines marked her face. She looked up as Bennett entered. "Major Bennett, thank you for coming quickly." Her voice was stronger than her appearance suggested. Bennett saluted. "Admiral, sit down." She pointed to the chair across from her. "Do you know why you're here?" "No, Mom." Admiral Summers pressed a button, and a hologram appeared above the table. It showed the current state of the war. Red areas, Arcturian territory, covered most of the map. The blue areas, human space, had shrunk to just a few dozen star systems. "We're losing this war, Major. At current rates, humanity will be defeated within 20 years. Bennett studied the map. He had suspected things were bad, but seeing it displayed so clearly made his stomach tighten. "The Arcturians are beating us because they're smarter, more advanced, and perfectly coordinated," the Admiral continued. "Their hive mind can process battle strategies faster than our best computers. They never make mistakes." "No one is perfect, Admiral," Bennett said. "The Arcturians come damn close." She turned off the hologram. "We've tried everything in our standard playbook. Nothing works." Bennett waited. There was more coming. There had to be a reason he was here instead of at his post. "The Council has reviewed your record, Major. Your methods are unusual. Some would say reckless. You don't follow standard doctrine. Yet somehow, your units have one of the highest survival rates in the fleet. Your tactics confuse even our own strategists. I take that as a compliment, ma'am." For the first time, Admiral Summers smiled slightly. It was meant as one. She stood up and walked to the window. The Earth hung in the distance, beautiful and blue. "We need someone who thinks differently, Major. Someone the Arcturians can't predict." Bennett felt a chill run down his spine. "What exactly are you asking me to do, Admiral?" Summers turned to face him. "I'm not asking. I'm ordering. Effective immediately, you are promoted to Fleet Commander of all remaining Terran forces." Bennett stood up so quickly his chair fell backward. "Admiral, there are dozens of officers with more experience and rank, all of whom think the same way. The way that's losing this war." She handed him a datapad with his new orders. "Your flagship will be the U.S. Defiant. It's being prepared as we speak." Bennett looked down at the pad. This was either a desperate last attempt or a way to blame the inevitable defeat on him. "Your orders are simple, Commander Bennett. End this war, by any means necessary." Admiral Summers saluted him. It was the first time in his career that someone of her rank had saluted him first. "Humanity is counting on you, Commander. Don't let us down." The U.S. Defiant was the largest ship Bennett had ever served on. As his shuttle approached, He could see battle scars along its hull. The massive ship had seen many fights and survived, though not without cost. Bennett stepped onto the bridge of the Defiant and felt all eyes turn to him. The crew stood at attention, but he could sense their doubt. He was not what they had expected in a new fleet commander. At ease, Bennett said. He looked around at the faces watching him. Some showed curiosity, others clear disapproval. A woman with short brown hair and sharp eyes stepped forward. Lieutenant Claire Morrison, tactical officer. Welcome aboard, Commander. Her tone was proper but cold. Thank you, Lieutenant. Bennett noticed how she studied him, clearly wondering if the rumors about him were true. I'd like to meet with all senior officers in 1 hour. Bennett spent that hour in his new quarters, reviewing the ship's recent battle records. The Defiant had fought bravely, but like all human ships, had rarely won against the Arcturians. The patterns were always the same. Humans would try a new tactic, succeed once, and then the Arcturians would adapt and counter it perfectly the next time. The meeting room was silent when Bennett entered. 8 senior officers sat around the table, waiting. None of them smiled. I know what you're all thinking, Bennett began. Why send this man to lead us? What can he do that others haven't tried? He paused. Fair questions. Let me show you something. Bennett activated the room's display system. Battle recordings from the past century appeared. I spent years studying how the Arcturians fight. Everyone says they're perfect, but perfect is predictable. He zoomed in on several battles. Look here and here. They always respond the same way to similar situations. Their perfection is actually a weakness. Lieutenant Morrison leaned forward. With respect, Commander, we've all analyzed these battles. The Arcturians adapt to everything we do. They adapt to everything they understand, Bennett corrected. But there's one thing they've never truly understood: human chaos. An older man with a thick beard spoke up. Commander, I'm Chief Engineer Paul Rodriguez. What exactly are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we stop trying to beat them at their game. Perfect logic, perfect formations, perfect responses. That's their strength. Our strength is unpredictability. Bennett looked around the room. From today, we train differently. We fight differently. The officers exchanged looks. A woman with blonde hair tied back in a tight bun raised her hand. Communications Specialist Amy Winters, sir. How do we implement this? Chaos. Bennett smiled for the first time. We start now. Engineer Rodriguez, I want you to modify our weapon systems to fire at random intervals rather than optimal ones. Lieutenant Morrison, develop battle plans that make no logical sense. Then we'll refine them. Specialist Winters, I want our communications to include deliberate errors and corrections. Morrison's eyes widened. That goes against everything in the manual. Exactly, Bennett said. The manual hasn't won this war in 3 centuries. The room fell silent again, but it was a different kind of silence. Some officers looked intrigued, others worried. Rodriguez was the first to nod. It's crazy, but we've tried everything else. I'm in. Winters nodded next. My team can start implementing communication variations immediately. Morrison was the last to respond. She stood up, her expression serious. I'll need to see more details of this plan, Commander, but I'll work on those battle scenarios. That's all I ask, Bennett said. Questions, comments? A younger officer spoke up from the back. Sir, what happens when the Arcturians adapt to our chaos? Bennett looked at him steadily. Then we become even more chaotic. We'll do things no rational being would ever consider. Because that's what makes us human. We don't always make sense, and that's our advantage. As the meeting ended, Bennett caught Morrison studying him again. She wasn't convinced yet, but there was something new in her expression, a small spark of what might have been hope. Prepare the fleet, Bennett ordered. Our first war games begin tomorrow, and they won't be like anything you've seen before. The first week of training under Commander Bennett's new system was hard. Many officers complained. Some even requested transfers. Bennett ignored them all and pushed forward with his plan. "This makes no sense," Lieutenant Morrison said during the third day of war games. On the main screen, two groups of ships were practicing Bennett's new tactics. Instead of moving in standard formations, the ships flew in what looked like random patterns. "That's exactly the point," Bennett replied. He stood beside her at the tactical station. "The Arcturians expect sense. They expect logic. We need to do what they don't expect." Morrison frowned but said nothing more. She had been watching Bennett closely. His ideas were strange, but she could not deny he believed in them completely. On the fifth day, Bennett gathered the senior officers again. "Today we try something new," he said. "In this exercise, when you think you should attack, retreat. When you think you should retreat, attack. Commander, with respect, Fats," Morrison began. "Crazy?" Bennett finished for her. "Yes, and that's why it might work against the Arcturians." He looked around the room. "They've beaten us for centuries because they can predict what we'll do. We need to be unpredictable." Rodriguez had become one of Bennett's strongest supporters. The engineer had already modified several systems to behave in ways that seemed almost random. "My team has finished the weapons modifications, Commander. They'll fire with deliberate timing variations." "Excellent," Bennett said. "Remember, everyone, I don't expect perfection. In fact, I want the opposite. I want controlled chaos." The officers left to prepare for the day's exercises. As Bennett watched them go, he noticed Morrison lingering behind. "Something on your mind, Lieutenant?" "Many things, Commander." She approached him slowly. "I studied your record, your previous assignments, your victories." Bennett waited. He could tell she was working up to something. "You've never lost a ship under your command," she finally said, "even in battles where the odds were terrible." "How?" "Because I don't play by rules the enemy knows," Bennett said simply. "The Arcturians think they understand humans. They've studied our tactics for centuries. But they don't understand human creativity, human emotion, human chaos." Before Morrison could respond, alarms sounded throughout the ship. A voice came over the comm system. "Commander to the bridge. Arcturian scout group detected." Bennett and Morrison rushed to the bridge. On the main screen, 3 Arcturian ships approached. They were sleek, silver vessels that moved with perfect coordination. "Battle stations," Bennett ordered calmly. "But don't power weapons yet. Lieutenant Morrison, take tactical." Morrison moved to her station. Her hands hovered over the controls. "Waiting for your orders, Commander." The bridge crew watched nervously as the Arcturian ships drew closer. In normal circumstances, they would have powered weapons immediately and taken standard defensive positions. "Full speed ahead," Bennett ordered, directly toward the center ship. The crew looked shocked. Morrison turned to him. "Sir, that puts us right in their firing path." "Exactly. They won't expect it. Rodriguez, prepare to activate your modified weapons systems on my mark, but make it look like our weapons are powdered down." The U.S. Defiant moved forward, straight toward the enemy. The Arcturian ships, clearly confused by this behavior, hesitated. "They're trying to figure out our strategy," Bennett said quietly. "They're looking for the logic. There is none." When the Defiant was almost within firing range of the Arcturians, Bennett suddenly called out, "Hard port turn, now. Rodriguez, weapons." The massive ship swung sharply left just as the Arcturians began to react. The modified weapons fired in an unpredictable pattern that didn't match any known human battle strategy. The Arcturian ships, prepared for a logical response, were caught completely off guard. Their perfect formation broke as they tried to adapt to the unexpected attack. Within minutes, 2 Arcturian ships were disabled. The third retreated quickly. The bridge was silent for a moment, then erupted in cheers. It was the first clean victory against Arcturian forces in decades. Morrison looked at Bennett with new respect in her eyes. "That shouldn't have worked," she said. "But it did." Bennett nodded. "Chaos as strategy. Tell the fleet what happened here today." It's time to change how we fight this war. News of the victory spread quickly through the human fleet. Ships that had been fighting losing battles for years now requested to join Bennett's command. The United Earth Defense Council was cautiously optimistic, but warned Bennett not to get overconfident. 2 weeks after their first victory, Bennett called his senior officers together. The room felt different now. There was energy and hope where before there had been only tired resignation. Operation Wildcard begins today, Bennett announced. He pulled up a map of nearby star systems. We won't be fighting to win every battle. That's what the Arcturians expect. Morrison, who had become one of Bennett's strongest supporters after their victory, looked confused. If we're not fighting to win, what are we fighting for? Confusion, Bennett replied. We hit here, then here, then here. He pointed to different locations on the map. Sometimes we retreat when victory is possible. Sometimes we attack when defeat seems certain. No pattern, no logic the Arcturians can analyze. Engineer Rodriguez nodded enthusiastically. I've developed something that might help with that. He placed a small device on the table. We've been modifying our ships to look like they're malfunctioning when they're actually following your random patterns. Bennett picked up the device. Explain. It emits signals that make our engines, weapons, and shields appear to be failing or glitching, but they're actually operating according to our programmed chaos. The Arcturians will think we're having technical problems when we're actually executing planned maneuvers. Bennett smiled. Perfect. Specialist Winters, how are the communication protocols coming along? Amy Winters stood up. Ready, sir. We've developed a system that sounds like garbled transmissions to anyone listening in, but our ships can understand the real messages hidden inside. Good. Bennett looked around the room. Everyone needs to understand this won't be easy. You'll be ordered to do things that seem wrong. Trust the plan. Trust the chaos. The fleet moved out the next day. 7 ships, led by the U.S. Defiant, began Operation Wildcard. Their first target was a small Arcturian outpost near the Rigel system. As they approached, Bennett gave orders that confused even his own crew. Shield Group 2, power down your defenses and drift toward the outpost. Shield Group 1, increase power and make it obvious. The Arcturians responded as expected, concentrating their fire on the ships with active shields. But when their ships moved to attack, the supposedly vulnerable human ships suddenly powered up and attacked from unexpected angles. The battle ended quickly. The human fleet had destroyed the outpost with minimal damage to their own ships. But Bennett didn't allow celebrations. Move to the next target immediately, he ordered. Different formation, different tactics. Over the next month, Bennett's fleet struck at 12 different Arcturian positions. Sometimes they would attack with full force. Other times they would send only 1 or 2 ships. Sometimes they would retreat after doing minimal damage. Other times they would push forward aggressively even when outnumbered. The Arcturians couldn't predict what the humans would do next. Their perfect battle computers struggled to find patterns where none existed. After the 12th attack, Bennett called Morrison to his office. The tactical display showed something that hadn't been seen in over a century. The Arcturians were pulling back their forces from several star systems. They're confused, Morrison said, studying the map. They don't know where we'll strike next because we don't follow any logical pattern. Exactly. Bennett pointed to a section of the map that now showed blue instead of red. Territory reclaimed for humanity. But they're learning. Their responses are already starting to adapt. Morrison frowned. So what's our next move? We become even more unpredictable. Bennett pulled up a new battle plan. Operation Double Bluff. We make them think they've figured out our pattern. Then we do the opposite. Morrison studied the plan. This is even crazier than before. That's the point, Lieutenant. Bennett looked at her steadily. Humanity survived for centuries because we're adaptable. Now it's time to show the Arcturians just how unpredictable we can be. The victory celebrations didn't last long. 3 weeks after Operation Wildcard began, the Arcturians launched a massive counterattack. A new ship led their forces, a massive vessel twice the size of any they had used before. Human scouts reported that it was called the Architect, and it housed the most advanced Arcturian intelligence ever created. Bennett watched grimly as reports came in. 3 human outposts had been destroyed in a single day. The Arcturians were adapting faster than he had expected. They're learning, he told his officers during an emergency meeting. They're studying our chaos and finding ways to predict it. Morrison pulled up the battle data from the recent attacks. The Architect is analyzing our movements. It's like it can see through our randomness. The room fell silent. Their advantage was slipping away. Sir, Rodriguez spoke up. Even random patterns have patterns if you look at enough of them. The Arcturians have centuries of data on human behavior. Bennett nodded slowly. You're right. We need to go deeper. He stood up and walked to the main display. They think they understand our chaos now. We need to be unpredictable in a different way. How? Winters asked. We've already broken every rule in the book. Bennett turned to face them. We need to be predictably unpredictable. The officers looked confused. Morrison leaned forward. Explain, Commander. We let them think they've figured us out. We establish patterns they can detect, on purpose. Then, when they think they understand us, we change in ways they don't expect. Bennett's eyes had a fierce light in them. It's like a game of chess where we sacrifice pieces to set up a move they don't see coming. An alarm sounded before anyone could respond. A junior officer rushed into the room. Commander, urgent message from Earth Defense Council. The Arcturians are attacking the Proxima Centauri colony. Proxima Centauri was the first human colony outside the solar system. It had deep historical importance, but limited strategic value. Why would the Arcturians attack there? It's a trap, Morrison said. They want to draw us in. Or they want us to think it's a trap so we don't defend it, Bennett countered. He studied the tactical display for a long moment. This is the first test of our new approach. Lieutenant Morrison, prepare a response force. But not what they'll expect. The Defense Council demanded immediate action to protect Proxima Centauri. Many voices called for Bennett's removal when he seemed to hesitate. Admiral Summers defended him, but her support was weakening. You need a victory, Commander, she told him in a private communication, or at least a good explanation for your current strategy. Bennett worked through the night with his core team. By morning, he had a plan that made Morrison shake her head in disbelief. Half our fleet will head toward Proxima Centauri, but stop short, Bennett explained. The other half will attack an Arcturian supply base in the opposite direction. The Architect will expect us to either fully commit to saving the colony or to ignore it as a trap. We'll do neither. Rodriguez looked worried. We'll be dividing our forces, if the Architect figures it out. That's why we need to sell the deception, Bennett said. Specialist Winters, I want obvious communications chatter about rescuing Proxima. Too obvious. Make it look like we're trying to hide our real plan but doing a bad job of it. The fleet moved out the next day. For 3 days, they maneuvered exactly as Bennett had predicted the Architect would expect. Then, just when the Arcturians committed to their trap at Proxima Centauri, Bennett ordered a complete change of tactics. The human ships that had been hanging back suddenly accelerated at full speed. The ones that had been heading toward the supply base changed course. The formation shifted into something that looked like a mistake, but was precisely planned. The Arcturians, expecting one of several logical responses, were caught completely unprepared. When the battle ended, humanity had saved the Proxima Centauri colony and destroyed a significant portion of the Arcturian trap force. For the first time, they had outthought the Architect. Morrison found Bennett on the observation deck after the battle. That shouldn't have worked, she said. But it did. Again. Bennett nodded. The deeper game has just begun. The Architect will adapt again. And so will we. The victory at Proxima Centauri bought Bennett time, but not much. The United Earth Defense Council wanted more wins, faster progress. Admiral Summers warned him that many powerful people were questioning his methods. They don't understand that this is a long game, Bennett told Morrison as they walked through the ship. The Arcturians have been fighting us for centuries. We can't beat them in a few months. Try telling that to politicians who want quick results, Morrison replied. She had become his closest advisor in recent weeks. What's our next move? Bennett stopped walking and looked out a viewport. Stars stretched out before them. Somewhere out there, the architect was planning its next attack. Something they would never expect from us, he said quietly. Something that goes against every human instinct. 3 days later, Bennett called a meeting with only his most trusted officers, Morrison, Rodriguez, and Winters. What he proposed shocked them all. We're going to leak information suggesting we plan to abandon the Europa mining colony, Bennett said. We'll make it look like an obvious trap. Europa was one of humanity's key mining facilities. The rare minerals from its oceans were essential for building ships and weapons. The Arcturians will assume it's a trap and avoid it, Bennett continued. Then we will actually abandon Europa. The room exploded in protest. Morrison spoke loudest. Commander, that's one of our most valuable resources. We can't just give it up. That's exactly why we must, Bennett answered calmly. The Arcturians expect us to protect valuable assets. They expect traps to be actual traps. We need to establish a pattern where our traps are not traps. Rodriguez looked troubled. Sir, even if this works, what's the end goal? A series of expected sacrifices leading to one unexpected stand, Bennett said. Trust me, this is part of a larger plan. Despite continued objections, Bennett moved forward. Information about plans to defend Europa was deliberately leaked. As expected, the Arcturians avoided the apparent trap. Then, shocking everyone, Bennett actually ordered the evacuation of the colony. The fallout was immediate and harsh. The Defense Council demanded explanations. Military leaders called for Bennett's removal. Civilians protested the loss of such a valuable resource. Only Admiral Summers continued to defend him, but even her support was wavering. Whatever master plan you have, Commander, it better work soon, she warned. That night, Morrison found Bennett alone in his quarters. He sat at his desk, reviewing battle plans while criticism poured in from Earth. May I speak freely, sir? She asked after the door closed behind her. Bennett nodded without looking up. The crew is confused. Morale is dropping. Everyone wants to know if you're actually trying to win this war or just playing games with the Arcturians. Bennett finally looked up. The strain of recent weeks showed on his face. Lieutenant, what do you think? Do you believe I'm sacrificing lives and resources for no reason? Morrison paused before answering. No, I've watched you closely. You care about every loss. There's pain in your eyes when you make these decisions. She took a seat across from him. But I don't understand the bigger picture. None of us do. Bennett sighed and turned his display toward her. It showed a complex series of planned maneuvers across dozens of star systems, extending months into the future. Each sacrifice builds the pattern, he explained. We're teaching the Arcturians how to predict us. We're teaching the architect to expect certain responses. Then, when everything depends on it, he pointed to a location on the map. We break the pattern in a way they cannot possibly prepare for. Morrison studied the plan. Her eyes widened as she began to understand. You're setting up the entire Arcturian fleet for one decisive battle. Bennett nodded. But it only works if they believe they understand us completely. That's why these sacrifices are necessary. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Morrison placed her hand over his. I trust you, Commander, and I'll help the crew understand, whatever it takes. For the first time in weeks, Bennett smiled. Thank you, Claire. We have a long road ahead, but there is a plan. I promise you that. Over the next 2 months, Bennett's plan unfolded exactly as he had predicted. After Europa, the human fleet retreated from 3 more valuable positions. Each time, the Arcturians moved in cautiously, expecting traps that never came. Each time, the criticism against Bennett grew louder. Many ships in the fleet began to ignore his orders. Some captains openly questioned his loyalty. Only the core group around Bennett, Morrison, Rodriguez, Winters, and the crew of the U.S. Defiant remained completely faithful to his plan. "The pattern is established," Bennett told them during a private meeting. "The architect now believes it understands how we think. It expects us to make a final stand at Earth if pushed far enough." Rodriguez looked up from his work. For weeks, he had been building something in secret under Bennett's orders. "The Chaos Engine is ready, Commander. But we've only had time to build one." Bennett nodded. "One is all we need." Morrison pulled up the latest intelligence reports. "The Arcturians are gathering a massive fleet near Saturn. They think we're going to make another strategic retreat. And instead we're going to do something completely unexpected," Bennett said. He activated the main display. "Send these orders to all ships still loyal to our command. Full fleet convergence at Proxima Centauri in 24 hours. His officers looked surprised. "Proxima Centauri?" Winters asked. "But that has minimal strategic value. We already defended it once." "Exactly," Bennett said. "The Arcturians would never expect us to commit our main force to defend a system with little strategic importance, especially not when they're threatening Earth itself." Morrison understood first. "Because we've established a pattern of abandoning valuable resources, they expect us to abandon Proxima Centauri without a fight. And when they send only a small force to claim it, we'll be waiting with everything we have," Morrison finished. The plan was risky. If the architect saw through their deception, the human fleet would be caught out of position to defend Earth. Bennett was betting everything on the psychological pattern he had established over months of careful sacrifices. His remaining ships, just over half the original fleet, arrived at Proxima Centauri and took hidden positions throughout the system. The Chaos Engine, Rodriguez's secret project, was installed aboard the U.S. Defiant. "What exactly does this weapon do?" Morrison asked as they made final preparations. Rodriguez grinned. "It generates completely random energy patterns that the Arcturians can't predict or defend against. But more importantly, it disrupts their hive mind communication. Their perfect coordination fails when they can't communicate." 2 days later, the Arcturian response force arrived. As Bennett had predicted, it was small, just 6 ships led by a minor command vessel. The architect had committed its main forces to Saturn, preparing for a push toward Earth. "Wait until they're fully in the system," Bennett ordered as his officers watched the enemy ships approach. "Let them think it's safe." When the Arcturian ships reached Proxima Centauri's main planet, Bennett gave the order. "All ships, attack pattern Omega. Rodriguez, activate the Chaos Engine." The human fleet rose from hiding places around moons, asteroids, and orbit positions. The Arcturians, caught completely by surprise, tried to form their usual perfect defense formation. That's when Rodriguez activated his device. Strange energy pulses spread across space. The Arcturian ships suddenly began moving erratically, their perfect coordination broken. "It's working," Winters called out. "Their communications are disrupted." The battle was short but intense. Without their perfect coordination, the Arcturians fought like any other species, and humanity had centuries of experience fighting as individuals within a team. 5 Arcturian ships were destroyed. The 6th, the command vessel, was disabled but not destroyed. "Bring it in," Bennett ordered. "I want that ship intact." As the human fleet surrounded the disabled Arcturian command ship, Bennett turned to Morrison. "Now for the most important part of the plan. We're not going to destroy their command ship. We're going to use it." Morrison looked at him with new understanding. "You want access to their network. You want to communicate with the architect directly." Bennett nodded. "This war has gone on for centuries because neither side truly understands the other. It's time for that to change." News of the victory at Proxima Centauri spread quickly. The United Earth Defense Council praised Bennett's brilliance, conveniently forgetting their earlier criticism. Admiral Summers sent a personal message of congratulations, But Bennett had no time for celebrations. For 3 days, Rodriguez and his team worked to establish a connection with the captured Arcturian ship. They needed a way to communicate directly with the architect without allowing it access to human systems. "We've got it," Rodriguez finally announced. "We can establish a communication link. But Commander, there's something else you should see." Deep inside the Arcturian ship, they found something unexpected. A strange crystalline chamber filled with a glowing blue substance. "It's their central processor," Rodriguez explained. "But it's not just a computer. There's something alive in there." Bennett studied the pulsing blue light. "Can we communicate with it?" "Yes, but it's dangerous. Their thought processes are completely different from ours. Anyone attempting direct communication could be overwhelmed." Bennett nodded. "Set it up. I'll do it myself." Morrison stepped forward immediately. "Commander, that's too risky. We need you to lead the fleet." "This is how we end the war, Claire," Bennett said quietly. "Not with more battles, but with understanding." While Rodriguez made preparations, Bennett received a message from the architect itself. The massive Arcturian flagship was approaching Proxima Centauri with their entire fleet. They had realized their mistake too late. "How long until they arrive?" Bennett asked. 6 hours, Winters replied. "Not enough time for reinforcements to reach us." Bennett looked around at his officers. "Then we have 6 hours to change everything." The communication system was ready just as the Arcturian fleet appeared at the edge of the system. Bennett sat in a chair connected to the crystalline chamber. Rodriguez attached sensors to his head. "This will allow your mind to interface with their system," the engineer explained. "But sir, we have no idea what will happen." Bennett looked at Morrison. "If this works, hail the architect when their fleet arrives. Show them I'm connected to their system. They won't attack while I'm linked to their network." Morrison nodded, concern clear in her eyes. "Good luck, William." Rodriguez activated the system. Bennett's body stiffened as his mind connected with the Arcturian consciousness. His eyes closed, but beneath the lids, rapid movement could be seen. Inside his mind, Bennett found himself in a vast, ordered space. Countless patterns surrounded him, perfect and precise. This was how the Arcturians saw the universe, as equations and probabilities, not as living, chaotic reality. A presence approached, ancient, powerful, and curious. The architect. No words were exchanged. Instead, Bennett opened his mind, showing the architect everything: human history, art, music, love, grief, chaos, creativity. He showed it centuries of war from the human perspective. The fear, the courage, the desperate hope. In return, the architect shared the Arcturian experience, the search for perfect order, the confusion when faced with human unpredictability, the inability to comprehend why humans fought so hard when logic suggested surrender. Outside, in the physical world, the Arcturian fleet arrived. Morrison hailed the architect as planned. On screen, an Arcturian appeared, tall, silver-skinned, with eyes that held no pupils. "Your commander is connected to our network," Morrison explained. "He seeks understanding, not victory." The Arcturian was silent for a long moment. Then, "We are aware. The architect is learning." Inside the connection, Bennett offered a proposal: peace based on mutual respect for their differences. Humans would never have the perfect order of the Arcturians. Arcturians would never fully understand human chaos. But together, they could create something greater than either could alone. After what seemed like eternity, Bennett gasped and opened his eyes. The connection was broken. "They're powering down weapons," Winters called out. "The entire Arcturian fleet is standing down." Bennett stood shakily, supported by Morrison. "The war is over," he said. "They understand now, not completely, but enough." Days later, as human and Arcturian ships flew side by side for the first time, Bennett and Morrison stood on the observation deck of the U.S. Defiant. "How did you convince them?" she asked. I showed them that chaos and order need each other, Bennett replied. The war didn't end because we defeated them. It ended because we showed them something worth more than victory, a future neither of us could predict alone.